Hello and welcome to A Cast for Crows, the Game of Thrones focused podcast here on deadscreen.net. I am Drew.
I'm Alexa.
And I'm Joe.
And we are here to talk about episode 6 of season 5, Unbowed, Unbent, and Unbroken. So I really like this episode because it was focused on a lot of the characters that I like that we've been missing out on for a while. So I think one of the big things that happened was Arya had a good chunk in this episode, which was much needed, and we finally got to figure out sort of a little bit of what's going on behind that door after she washes the bodies and they sort of go away. You learn what's behind there, but I still have no idea what's going on. So basically, it looked to me as the dumb one of the group that it was a bunch of kind of faces on the wall, and that's as far as I was able to digest and figure it out. It kind of looked like a bunch of masks. I was trying to decide because I know early on in the season he sort of took off the mask, sort of like Mission Impossible 2 style. So I was wondering if they were faces or whatever, or I have no idea what's going on back there.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. They're the faceless men. They wear different faces.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's
what
legit
makes sense to me.
Wearing faces.
Yeah.
Instead of magic or something else. It's
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Is there anything you can tell us about that, Joe, that isn't spoiling anything? Because to me that was oh, cool. I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, basically, that's what happens to people when they die in the House of Black and White, which is what Arya was asking, is that they take them away. That's why they have to clean their bodies so thoroughly, is because they remove the faces so that they can wear them themselves. Mm-hmm. And so, again, it goes back to a point we talked about a few weeks ago, is that, we have no freaking clue what Jaqen looks like. For all we know, that face he's wearing is someone who died, 100 years ago or something.
Yeah.
But as far as the faces, I think that there's not too much more I can say right now. I mean, obviously we saw at the end, we know Arya is going to wear one of those faces because Jaqen feels that she has learned enough right now in her sort of her internship, I guess.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so what do you guys think she's going to do after she puts the face on?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I have no idea.
The faceless men are a group of assassins, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There are a lot of people she wants to kill.
Yeah.
What I'm I know this is not really about the storyline so much, but I'm just curious what's going to happen to Maisie Williams. Is she no longer going to be Arya? How would that work if she has a new face?
Was she gonna have a new face, or is she gonna are they disguises, or do you kind of adopt a face until you don't need it anymore? Does that make sense?
I don't want to answer that just because it's a spoiler right now.
All right. So, yeah, I don't know. Her storyline is still, one of the most interesting, I think. She has been for almost the whole season. I think you're right. She has a lot of people she wants to kill. She got, pretty decent at doing that stuff, so it doesn't seem something that she'd kind of fall naturally into.
I don't think she's ready for it, to be perfectly honest. I don't think she's ready to take a life. I think it's easy to say, I'm going to do this, but it's very different to actually go about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to remember, she's already taken several lives. She killed a stable boy. She killed that, was it Polliver, I think? So, I mean, for a young girl, she's already she's been around a lot of death. She's killed. She's nearly died, So she actually has a lot more experience with, all the darker sides of life than.
Yeah, I just I don't see her going out and just ruthlessly killing a bunch of people. And I feel once she has killed those people, she kind of loses her sense of purpose. It's something that's become so much a part of her that she recites it every single night. The list of names. Like, what happens to Arya after all this? Because, like, that's kind of the whole reason she wanted even to join the Faceless Men, is to get revenge.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think just, like, by what I mean is she's not ready, is, like, she's not ready to do what the Faceless Men do. Because I think she needs to respect life before she can take life.
That's a great way to put it, actually, because you're exactly right. Like, she wants to just kind of be an assassin and go around killing people, but that's not exactly what the Faceless Men do, you know? There's a religious aspect to it, there's a respect aspect to it, and yeah, you're right, she does still have to learn a lot about that.
Yeah, it's very different than the Hound, than what she was going through sort of learning with him. Like, he was kind of like, I need this, I'm going to kill these people and take it, or these people are... Like, it's a very different, so it's like, you know, she grew up from being a little girl into sort of what she is now with the Hound, and now she has a whole other sort of stage to grow up with the Faceless Men.
Yeah.
Alexa, so I have something to say about the Sandsakes. You kind of hyped them up a lot.
I know!
And I do not think they're cool. I think that...
I was the only one that hyped them up, because, like... Game of Thrones, like, on their Facebook page and stuff, were, like, showing, oh, these are the Sand Snakes, and they had, like, several videos about the Sand Snakes, and I was like, these people seem cool. They seem really hyped up, and they just kind of seem like a bunch of whiny bitches trying to get back at someone who played no part in the death of their father.
Yeah. Am I the only one who thinks their accents sound really forced and fake?
Yeah,
because, like,
they do.
The main Sandsnake, I guess, like... I don't like listening to her talk because it sounds like she's forcing it.
Yeah.
That's interesting because the main Sand Snake, her name is Obara Sand, and she's played by Kate. I think it's pronounced Keisha Castle Hughes, and she's from New Zealand of all places. Mm-hmm. So it is a bit strange hearing her try and do a Dornish accent. Yeah. But yeah, I have to agree as far as what we were talking about with the kind of overhype with the Sand Snakes, because they do some cool stuff in the books, but it's just not
translating
like they've barely appeared this season at all, and then you know they're finally going to build up to this big battle against Jaime and Bronn, and then it lasts for like 30 seconds before Prince Durant's guard shows up and they stop them. And then the ultimate low for me, and I got a kick out of this, was when one of the younger Sand Snakes, I think it was Nim, they had been stopped, and Bronn goes, "Oh, you fight pretty well for a little girl," and Nim goes, "Rah!" and she tries to attack him and just kind of screams, and I'm like, okay, you just made yourself look like a 5-year-old. Come on now. You're supposed to be a Sand Snake, and you're supposed to be Dornish here.
Yeah. You know, I got really worried with Jaime and Bronn during that fight because I liked what's going on with them, and I had accepted that we were going to lose Bronn during that fight. It started and I was like, well, this is the last time we see him. He's not going to make it. And so while the fight was going on, my girlfriend looks at me and she goes, the axe guy can come. And I was like, who's the axe guy? And the axe guy. She was talking about the guard with the, remember Prince Dorian was like, I hope you remember how to use that. She's like, the axe guy can come. I'm like, yes, the axe guy can come. So I just kept waiting for him to come. And so they did. So, like, they're, like, captive right now, I guess. They're probably going to be thrown in some holding cells. But I was like, yes, he's going to make it through and survive. Because I just had accepted that he was going to be dead. So, I mean, that's what I think will happen with them. Because it's interesting that and it sounds like there's a group of people in Dorne who want the little Lannister girl to, like, be used as some chess piece, and then the prince kind of wants her to not be hurt, and Jaime and Bronn are there to sort of save her. So I don't know. There's an interesting dynamic there. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, whether they're like.
And then at the same time, she doesn't want to be saved. Yeah,
that's the other aspect of that. That messes that whole thing up.
Yeah, it just kind of seems like I don't know if it's just the way that they're portraying it, but it just kind of seems like the Sand Snakes are just like an annoyance to Thorin.
Yeah,
and kind of like.
Yeah, they built it up in a way that it's one of those things you can tell that there's a lot of stuff behind it in the books that we're not getting. Like, it should be a bigger deal than it is, but if you're just a show watcher, that's exactly what they are. I think they're just like this annoying thing that's like, stop, you're in the way, sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting that too, but I think we know for sure, we know they're getting probably thrown in a holding cell, but Prince Turan definitely will not allow anything to happen to Jaime, because that will automatically get Dorne involved in war.
Yeah.
When they're probably not ready for it yet. But I do kind of think, Andy, it's funny you were just saying that you're convinced Bronn will survive now, because I think he might be seen as the...
Yeah, I'm not convinced that he'll make it out. I was convinced that he would survive that fight. And so...
Okay.
I accept...
I was just going to say, I think he's the... Prince Doran might view him as the expendable piece here.
Mm-hmm.
And, who's really going to miss Bronn aside from Tyrion, who's halfway around the world, and, other than Jaime. So...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could totally see
Jaime
that.
we know will be fine.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk a little bit about Loris's trial?
Alexa, you can take that one.
I can take... Okay. I mean, the part that I found most interesting about that is just Marjorie got arrested. So it's just kind of going to test Tommen and his, like, what's the word I want to use? Who he is going to support here. He's going to support his mother or Marjorie, or if he's going to do anything about it. Because he's kind of just, like, been like, yeah, I'll do something, and then doesn't do anything because he's a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
So, will he grow some balls now that his beloved wife is in peril?
Yeah. I loved seeing Cersei back to her, like, smug little face again. I know we got a little of it in the last few episodes, but this was, like, a big one. And I was like, yeah, that's great. I don't know, I think it's interesting. I don't know. Tommen has done nothing for me. I have no faith in him, and I don't expect him to, like, do anything grand. So I don't.
And since he's not doing anything at all, what the hell was the point of aging him up at all in that case?
Yeah.
Just to basically have some sex with Marjorie, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is he gonna get sad when he has blue balls because his wife's in jail? Maybe he'll do something based on hormones alone.
Maybe. So, can somebody break down what Littlefinger has been doing for this whole season? Because he has a lot of pieces moving.
He's been doing everything. Everything that's happened has just been Littlefinger.
Yeah, I had to pause because my girlfriend looked at me and she was like, "What is he trying to do now?" And I had to pause and walk her through how I remember things. And as I was doing it, I started to like confuse myself. So I need like a step-by-step thing, really briefly, as to like all his little pieces.
Okay, I will take you guys through this. It's funny because I have spent like months at a time trying to piece together Littlefinger's full plan in the books, and I still can't do it. But in the show at least, I can give you guys a recap. The reason he went to see Cersei and the plans he made with her were to inform her that Sansa was going to marry Ramsay, and also to inform her that Stannis was planning to march on Winterfell, and that war would begin up there. And he's saying, bring what's left of your army, bring it north, we'll combine it with the Boltons, and we can crush Stannis, and then make me your warden of the north, and then basically that would cut Roose Bolton out of the picture because Cersei's not happy with him right now. And so... if Cersei were to come out on top in the war, then Littlefinger becomes Warden of the North. We already know from previous episodes that he told Sansa that he's planning on supporting Stannis, which I do believe that to be the case still. He'd support Stannis, and if Stannis ends up winning that war, then he can claim, I've supported Sansa's claim to the North. I support the Starks, and maybe hopefully Stannis will find him trustworthy. And if the Boltons come out on top, then he formed an alliance with Roose Bolton by agreeing to bring Sansa out of hiding and marry her to Ramsay. So what he has done here it's brilliant, because he's literally covered all his bases without anyone fully suspecting him of any sort of treachery. So it's brilliant. It's brilliant on one hand, but you're reminded of why it's important to dislike him too, because we learned in this episode, like we talked about, oh, he cares for Sansa, he just wants the best for Sansa. Well, no, if he did, he wouldn't have brought her out of hiding to get raped by Ramsay. We'll talk about that later. But at the end of the day, what we learned yesterday, and this was a very important reminder, is that Littlefinger puts Littlefinger above everyone else, regardless of whether it's Sansa or anyone else. He wants power. That's what he wants the most, and we have to remember that.
So, Cersei made a comment about blah blah. They had that whole discussion. She was like, "I know you'll have meant what you've said here. When I see Sansa's head on a stake outside or something like that." And then he kind of agreed with her, but he didn't say yeah. And so my thought was, is any part does he fully believe is that what he's gonna do? If it goes that way, he'll kill her and side with the Lannisters, or is it yeah, you can think that for now, but then I'll be Warden of the North and I'll just marry her and blah blah blah? Because I feel like we're supposed to assume to some extent that he has some sort of actual feelings for her.
If it came to that, I don't think it'll come to that, honestly, but if it did, I don't think Littlefinger would harm Sansa or even deliver her into Cersei's hands. But then again, he did deliver her into Bruce and Ramsay Bolton's hands. So, it's the same as the books. You never know for sure quite what he is capable of. And that's what makes him so dangerous.
Yeah.
Either
way, Cersei's a fool to trust him at all.
Yeah.
No, I don't see him siding with Lannisters, or, willingly siding with the Boltons at any point. As much as, Littlefinger only thinks about Littlefinger, he's also made it really clear that he was always in love with Catelyn. And they were the reason she's dead. So I don't see him actively siding with the Lannisters unless it was beneficial to him in his grand plan, which, I don't know what it is. But at first in that scene, I was like, wow, what an ass. He's, selling out Sansa, and then it, took me a second. I was like, this is Littlefinger. He has a plan. This isn't just him.
Yeah.
And then it became more and more apparent to me that he was basically just given permission to, knock out Roose Bolton, which is something he wants to do. And he's basically doing everything he wants.
Yeah.
And like Joe said, he's covering all of his bases. Either way, he wins.
It's a really interesting thing, because pretty much whatever happens, he has put himself in a position to benefit from it in some way.
Yeah.
Or at least be safe enough to not worry about anything, sort of thing.
Yeah, and
yeah, but that's what makes him so brilliant, and yet we know we have to dislike him too, because he'll put himself before everyone else.
Yeah. It's very clear that he's always wanted a position of power. I'm not positive, but I do remember him saying something he came from nothing. I'm not sure if that's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was the ambitious little kid who came from nothing, who basically wants to take over. So I think any bit of power he can get, he's going to do whatever it takes.
It's worth noting a quote that Varys said in either season 1 or 2, I don't remember, but he said, Littlefinger would gladly see the country burn if he could be king of the ashes.
Yeah, I remember
that. So there was a decent amount of outrage after the episode, it seemed like, in regards to the Sansa and Ramsay scene.
Yeah.
So having, again, know nothing about this, all I remember is Joe said something that, like, Sansa was in for some trouble or something this season. Something along those lines. And so I assumed that was it, but it seems like from some of the stuff on the internet that it didn't really go down that way. And it seems like a lot of people are really upset about it. So can you sort of talk about why people are upset about it and why they should or shouldn't be, I guess?
I'll go first. I know, Alexa, I know you have a lot to say about this too. But my feeling on this is I wasn't outraged as a book reader because I strongly suspected it was going to happen. And let me just say the scene was much more graphic in the books. So
Yeah.
I would say show watchers got off somewhat lightly. But regarding the outrage, I mean, it's very delicate. It's a very delicate scene, delicate topic. But first off, there are some people out there who are saying that what we witnessed was not rape. Let's be clear. Just because they were married does not mean that she gave her consent in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And we could clearly see that she wanted no part of it, and yet Ramsay took her anyway. So, to be 100% clear, yes, that absolutely qualifies as rape. But on the other hand, I don't quite understand the outrage here, because if you'll go back to season 1, this season almost exactly mirrored what happened between Daenerys and Khal Drogo. And it was basically the same thing. He stripped her, he took her from behind, and the scene ended with her in tears. And yet we didn't hear a word about it back then. But yet now that it's happening to Sansa, I understand, you're 5 seasons into a show, you're more connected to a character. That's natural. But at the end of the day, this is still Game of Thrones. You already know these things can happen, and it wasn't particularly graphic. They showed Ramsay ripping the back of her dress, then they showed her face up close, and then they showed, well, in a brilliant turn of events, I thought, they showed Theon basically struggling to control himself and stay calm. And even knowing what I knew about the books, I actually wondered if Theon right there might even do something, whether he would try and kill Ramsay or whether something else would happen. But yeah, I'm having, this is just me, I'm having trouble understanding the outrage here. Like, I'm upset it happened. I don't want to, I like Sansa. I hate Ramsay. I don't want to see any character get raped, frankly. But this is Game of Thrones, and these things do happen. But what do you guys think?
So, I have something real quick. So, what I'm understanding from people being upset about this, and I sort of went into it with a different vibe just because of what I heard from Joe, but from what I'm getting from just other show watchers, is that at this point they've written in 2 rape scenes that weren't in the books, and so that's what I think is making a lot of people mad. I have friends on Twitter I'm done supporting Game of Thrones because at this point they've put in 2 unnecessary rape scenes, and it's like, why put those in there? We know this is a bad place. We know he's a bad person. We know she's in danger. So it's not providing anything other than the fact that she's getting raped. And so my thought was sort of what you were saying earlier, was that they needed to do something really drastic because what happens in the book is really bad, and they can't even hit it.
Do it.
Yeah, I'm thinking American Psycho level terrible stuff. And so you can't really show anything. You can't even hint at some of that stuff, because even hinting at it's holy shit, this is awful. And so my take on that was, and again, this is coming from just little hints you've said, Joe, is that something really bad happens, and they need to show the severity of something really bad happening without showing what actually happened. So they replaced it with this, and which in most people's mind is a terrible, terrible thing. And so instead of these people who don't know about the books and only know that that's not what happened, see, okay, they wrote another rape scene in, instead of they're replacing this terrible thing with this other terrible thing that you can kind of show, I guess. Not that it's
Yeah.
an excuse, but I think that's why a lot of people are upset. A lot of people who don't know about the books and who are just watching the show, it's now, okay, strike two of additional things they've added in that happen to be rape, and people are just not happy about it.
See, how I'm seeing this is, okay, it did happen almost identically to Daenerys the first season, but I think what people have so much trouble with is that, like, because obviously there's no situation in which rape is okay, but I feel people get more upset about it when it's someone who seems younger, because even though I think Daenerys is supposed to be around the same age as Sansa in the situation when it happened to her, I think the problem with it is that Emilia Clarke looks so much older, and when you see Sansa, it's kind of an innocent face, so it's kind of like, while they both experience the same thing, people feel like it's more of a loss of innocence with Sansa. I think that's where people had the problem with it, is just, she's just a young, innocent character, and that was taken from her, and I think that's just what caused the most outrage amongst people, because it's true, the exact same thing happened to Daenerys, and people weren't like upset about it. Everyone grew to love Khal Drogo despite the fact that he raped Daenerys.
So in the books, that's how that went down, right, Joe? Like, he raped her, or Daenerys early on. Like, that was sort of following the book structure, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I think it's a combination of all that stuff. I think a lot of people look at headlines, and I want to, clarify that I'm not saying that rape is, a better thing to show than the other thing. I'm just using that.
Yeah.
I think they chose to show that terrible thing versus this other terrible thing, and not that it's better, it's more acceptable to be seen. It's just that was the way they sort of showed something terrible happening to her. But I think a lot of people are looking at, titles of internet articles, and it's, Game of Thrones adds second rape scene that provides no value to,
See, I had a bit of a love-hate with this scene, because no one likes seeing rape. Unless you're a psychopath. But my problem with it specifically is that Sansa has been on this path where she's basically, I'm no longer the victim, basically is what she's been saying. And she's been on this path, and it's been working so well for her, and she's finally become such a strong character where she hasn't been victimized in a while. And this just kind of re-victimized. It didn't add any dimension to her character. It just kind of eradicated and erased everything that we've seen her develop into, because now she's being re-victimized, and that's just not the Sansa we've grown to love.
Yeah.
And that's my problem with the scene, but at the same time, I was really happy with the ending just because it zooms in onto Theon, and his face, it's dead, I'm gonna kill this guy. And I'm just ready to see Theon do it, because Theon grew up with Sansa. He views her as a sister. He's watching her get raped by someone he already hates. So, it was just, the look in his eyes was a great way to end it. But at the same time, I did have a love-hate relationship with the scene, because I really did not like having to see Sansa get re-victimized.
Yeah. I think that people were, right when they said that it didn't add a lot of stuff to it. Everything that we quote-unquote learned from that scene, we already knew about all of those characters. And I think I agree with them that it did not add anything. Whereas, you could argue that I don't think the Jaime and Cersei scene added anything either. Nothing has come from that up to this point. Whereas the Daenerys one early on sort of spurred her into what she is now. It was sort of a breaking point for her. So I feel like people would be less upset if you learned something, or it provided something of significant value. And I agree, I don't necessarily think this one did. I was expecting, because I saw stuff on Twitter about it, I didn't know what was going to happen. It was just people mad about it, and I assumed something bad. And so I assumed that it would be more graphic, and I was actually surprised at how not very graphic it was.
Yeah, you don't see any of the rape, really.
Yeah, a lot of it was, the most quote-unquote aggressive part was him ripping the back of her dress, and, it's not super graphic, and a lot of that scene is, just noises zooming in on Theon's face, so I don't know. I totally understand how people are upset about it, and I totally agree with a lot of their points. I just have this idea that they wanted to show something terrible happening to her without showing what happened in the book. So they picked, the next worst thing that they could get away with showing on TV, basically.
I think people also just kind of have the problem with it is because nothing actually happens to Sansa. It happens to the girl who's posing as Arya Stark. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just another issue. Is just this wasn't supposed to happen to Sansa.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's veered so far from the books at this point, just because it's had to, that I don't think you can necessarily just be comparing the two mediums constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that is another reason for the outrage is that in the book, the fake Arya, we don't really have any connection to that character at all. So while it is extremely, extremely graphic, that scene with Ramsay, we don't find ourselves. I mean, it's sickening, but it's more of an outrage in the show because it's a character we've come to know very well over 5.5 seasons, and it's also worth noting that throughout that 5.5 seasons, she had managed to keep her virginity despite being used as a pawn for so many other people, and now all of a sudden, that was the last, part of her innocence that she had, and now all of a sudden it's gone. Yeah. So I think that's another major part of the outrage as well.
I really hope that this gives her that breaking point, sort of like it did Daenerys in season 1. It really, because you could see it. Alexa was right. She was growing into this person, not the victim anymore. And you definitely saw it in that scene sort of before where she was, taking the bath and she was like, she said something like, I'm in my own house and you're not going to frighten me, or, something like that. And the girl sort of noped out of there. And so that was a really good, strong scene showing that, yeah, she's growing into this person. And so I'm hoping that if we have, if they're adding this in and we have to live with the fact that it happened in the show, something good comes out of it instead of like the Jaime and Cersei scene that I feel more upset about that scene the longer that it goes kind of unresolved. Yeah, unrecognized. Like it happened and literally nothing came from it. So why the change from the book? I can see the change from the book here to some extent, but if that one makes me more upset the farther we go along without recognizing it.
See, I feel like I can't see it go any other way. Like, I feel like Sansa is going to, I don't think she's going to just revert into this victim mode because she's gone so far. I feel like, if anything, it's going to increase her hate for the Boltons. Like, I just see it making her darker and, more vengeful.
Yeah.
But in the end, I feel like Theon's going to be the one to kill him.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of that.
So, not that, if they're just adding that scene for that reason, but hopefully something comes from it versus nothing coming from it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So we tried to get away and have a Game of Thrones podcast without mentioning Lost. But our boy Mr. Echo showed up. He's going to go looking for a cock merchant, which I thought was pretty funny. I liked that whole scene. If just to touch on it real quickly, I got really worried again because it was like stuff for both of them was just going down real fast. It was like started they were all right, and then stuff started getting bad real fast, and it was just like, well, now what's going to happen? And then Tyrion talked his way out of it like always. I feel like we haven't had a scene like that of him for a while.
Yeah, it had been a while.
So it was just nice to see. It was funny. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, my first reaction when I saw him, I was like, Mr. Echo!
Yeah.
It was so funny because I knew it looked familiar, but I didn't know. As soon as I checked Facebook messages, there was Alexa saying, oh, hey, look, there's Mr. Echo.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yep, a Lost actor. I should have known.
Yeah, it pulled me out of it because I was sort of the same way. I was looking at him, I was like, that guy looks familiar, and it pulled me out of the episode, and I had to sit there and think about it. So.
Actually, Westeros is the island.
I was gonna say, I'm sure while they're on the slaving ship going back wherever they're going, they're gonna get attacked by a smoke monster and some whatever. All right, is there anything about this episode you want to add, Joe, to finish up?
I mean, I think we covered all the major, controversial stuff, especially with the Sansa scene, and I think this was the best episode by far, personally, because I felt like the pacing and the fact that something significant happened in every single storyline this week was a major change from every other episode so far. So I hope we continue in this fashion because, obviously, some controversy aside, I felt that overall, this is the kind of episode I've been waiting for all friggin' season.
Yeah.
Like, this is the quality we usually expect from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, when it was done, I was like, wait, it's over? Like, it went by a lot more quickly than usual.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're starting to get to the end of the season. We'll have, 7, 8, 9, 10, 4 episodes left?
Yep.
So we're getting close to that end of the season big episode that Game of Thrones loves to have. So I'm excited about that. But all right, so no, yeah, I know you're not. So we will be back next week to talk about episode 7, which hopefully is as good as episode 6 was.
All right, see you later, guys.
Bye.